howdy doody, guys. It's Popcorn Junkies time. I do love the end of a week, because at the end of a week comes a whole new oasis of film going. It's
I don't
joyful.
like Sundays.
I don't like Sundays because you've seen everything by
No,
then.
I feel like Sundays are just worse than Mondays.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because you've
There's
got
nothing
Monday
you
to
can
come.
do that much,
Yeah, and also Sunday knows that Monday's around the corner. This Friday we saw Waves, which is a new indie film from America, set in Florida, directed by Trey Edward Shults. It stars a cast that not of big names, but it's got Kelvin Harrison Jr. in it, Lucas Hedges, who we do know, Taylor Russell, Alexa Demie.
From mid-90s and Euphoria.
Yeah, from mid-90s and Euphoria. And Sterling K. Brown, who was also in the case against O.J. Simpson on TV. A curious film in that it's made heads turn in America, but I think no one's really known what to do with it. But it's also being described in the same breath as a sort of experimental film. Insofar as it doesn't follow a sort of traditional narrative arc. It's a very hard film to describe. The synopses, whenever I come across it, are really useless. And then I watched the film and I thought, what's so bloody hard? Why are they struggling so much? It's the story of an ordinary, middle-class, black American family. It's the story of how a couple of choice and unfortunate moments in their children's lives can transform or change the entire family's trajectory, if you like. It starts with such verve and voom. It started with a shot to this minute. I'm struggling to even get my head around how they did it, which is a 360-degree revolving shot in the middle of the car where they were sat in the car.
Yeah.
I can't, literally, can someone tell me? I know this shit and I don't know how they did that.
It was quite, I got Euphoria vibes from it.
It was
because
very
that kind
Euphoria.
that constant turning of the camera, it was quite dizzying, but I really liked how it was like that. I loved the soundtrack from the start. The music was
Incredible. Trent Reznor, I think, who did the soundtrack to mid-90s.
the music was like waves of music. It was already from the start. I was kind of like
It was
felt like
fast.
something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like at the very beginning, I thought like the car was going to crash.
I did.
Yes, I did too.
I was really like on edge from the get-go.
So what were your feelings right at the beginning?
Well, the scenes that you've already talked about, I found dizzying in a literal way.
I mean, they are quite literally dizzying.
Yeah.
I thought it started with great energy and verve.
Huge energy. But I did think, and I do wonder about this sometimes myself, is whether I can, if the whole film is going to be on that level, whether my actual
handle it.
Whether
you can
handle
cope.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. But then it did calm down.
Yes.
And so then we're sort of, once we're taken into the whole idea of what he's aiming to do.
Who?
The son,
Yeah.
the boy.
Who's he's a wrestler.
Yeah, and it's quite important to say this, I think, because I said this to Kiki at one stage, is that you can't over or underestimate how important sports are
To
in
Americans.
American universities.
Absolutely
And it's how
agree.
people get through college.
Yeah.
They won't get through college unless they are doing that.
It's not looked down upon or frowned upon.
No.
It's seen as an equivalent to getting you through college
Absolutely.
as academia is. Yeah.
So
I
we
like.
start
I quite like that.
off, yes,
Yeah.
but we start off with that as a given.
Yeah.
And and the boy's father, who is encouraging him in one sense in a good way, but in another sense is encouraging him a bit too hard.
And is putting a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very competitive.
Very competitive. I mean, in many regards, the main character's story of being the sort of put upon, stressed, sporty type reminded me of the boy in Euphoria. There's a character very similar, isn't there?
Nathan.
Is it Nathan, the boy who's the black boy in it?
No, sorry.
No, the black boy who's under the same pressure, trying to be perfect, almost the same pressure within his relationships too, isn't he? I mean,
That's really similar actually, because Euphoria as well as Girlfriend.
it's almost an identical storyline.
Yeah.
For me, I was getting huge Euphoria vibes. So if anyone's seen Euphoria, this film really is a sort of almost a chamber piece alongside it. It's kind of weird. The director interestingly said that he was fascinated. Driving in cars is a big part of American youth culture.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of growing up. I mean, you can chart it in films back to films like American Graffiti with George Lucas. It's seen as a major part of the coming of age of American youth.
Yeah.
Getting in your car and driving around, as is drinking and everything else. And what I liked about an interview I read with the director, he said that for him, he wanted to get across the extraordinary excitement and autonomy youngsters feel when they're in a car.
And freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom, potentiality. But he said, actually, when you get older, you look back and you think, oh my God, the danger.
Yeah.
We could crash at any point. So he actually references that. I thought it was really intriguing because I did feel all the way through it, we were going to get one of those shots that you get in films where suddenly the screen gets hit.
Yeah.
So I thought it cleverly, stylistically gave us that edge of our seat thing without overtly telling us
when
what we're
nothing
on.
really happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so we slowly get into his life, and his family life is quite nice, isn't it? He's got a sister.
Yeah, little sister.
The little sister. Who plays the little sister? Yeah, I think this is Taylor Russell, the sister's first major part. I mean, she was idyllic and perfect and sweet. I thought she was very, very sweet. A grab on this film is it's a film in two halves.
Yeah,
Literally a film in two halves. We tell the story of the son, and then we essentially tell the story of the little sister.
Mm-hmm.
And around this we have dad and mum. And mum is effectively the stepmum, though we kind of have that revealed later in the film.
We don't know that,
No. What did you think about its storytelling once we got past that initial stylistic sort of flurry? Because although that technique kept coming back, you know, as we sort of went into their family life, it was quite ordinary in the telling.
I like that it was quite ordinary.
Yeah, I mean the story was ordinary. Everything looked nice, but we were kind of settling into an ordinary American family, weren't we?
Yeah, because they kind of wanted to shock us later, though. That I think that was what made the film so shocking, because it was such an ordinary family at the start.
Yes. I really like the fact that I'd have thought for a black audience in America, it was just matter of fact that this was a black family from a middle class background. I liked that.
Yeah,
they weren't over egging the fact that we had to, there wasn't overly political in that sense. It was just, this is the family, and I think I'd have thought that sort of aspiration and seeing that on screen is what I would assume most black viewers are wanting to see on cinema more often. Just give us a bloody ordinary family going through ordinary shit rather than constantly fighting oppression all the bloody time. And that's where I thought it was neat the way it just parked a moment of that in there, because you can't ignore it. So tell us what you thought. It's a spoiler review, by the way, so we're going to give away what happens.
Yeah, although it's an ordinary family, you're given sort of hints right from the beginning, I think, that the father is
He's overbearing
on behalf of his son. And right from things like the scene in the restaurant where they're doing the arm wrestle, and
he balanced threatening with care as well, though. I thought quite well.
Yeah, the threatening.
Yeah.
Did you think or not? Maybe not.
I do find him quite a scary. It's scary. That guy.
Yeah.
And even when he's not being scary, somehow
sure, he's got quite a severe face.
Yes. And
but we got I really like that nice moment between them when they were doing the lifting.
Yes, and they were laughing.
I like that he wasn't just one, because nobody's just one thing.
Yeah, I agree. I
could see why you would love him as your father as well as hate him.
I mean, what happens is the boy has a shoulder injury. We only know this sort of almost in passing, but then he goes into hospital and we see it, and he's told by the doctor unequivocally that he can't do any more wrestling. That sort of sits in the film. And then very shortly after that, and I'm only saying this because it meant something to me, was the boy goes and he takes one of his father's tablets. We know it's his father's tablet. We don't know what it's from. We don't know what it is.
Well, we know it's for his knee injury. He has a knee injury.
Oh, okay, do we? I missed the knee injury.
Yeah, in the diner they say that he had a knee injury.
Has a knee injury.
Oh, okay. And that's only important because of what then happens.
Yeah, what then happens. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think the way the father played it was brilliant, because as a parent watching it, I could see what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
He was trying to put in firm boundaries, strict boundaries, so that he could ensure the best for his kids, because he knew, as he said at some point, the world doesn't give a fuck about us.
Yeah.
He says that. The world doesn't care about us.
Well, the phrase
and
he uses...
we don't have the
and we don't have
pleasure of being
average. So we have to try 10 times harder. Exactly. But so from a parenting perspective, it was an interesting film to watch. So from your perspective, Maddie, what did you think of could you see the father's own reasonings for pushing his kids?
I mean, I could see why he wanted to do it. And he wasn't doing it because he was doing it because he thought it was the right thing. But obviously, because I'm around their age, the kids age more, I could see their frustration with it more than I could see the parents' reasoning. And there was one scene, which is the scene where the father says to him, we can't be average, we have to work twice as hard as anybody else to be something. But I really felt for him in that scene, because it was almost like we knew from kind of the start that the son wasn't telling his parents anything that was really going on. He wasn't telling them how severe his injury was, and he was powering through all of the exercising that he wasn't supposed to.
I really related to that. I really related to him.
I thought what was really interesting, and what I think would speak to a lot of teenagers as well, was in that scene when the father's he says something along the lines of, you don't realise how easy you've got it. And it's that thing of course the parent's I don't expect the parent to say any differently, because he doesn't know that the kid's going through anything, because the kid's not telling him. But it's that thing of your kid struggling and you have no idea about it, and I feel like when a parent says something like that, because I've had it before, like you guys might be like, you know, you have got it easier than other people, which I do. I have it easier than most people, but it's that sort of thing when somebody says that, you feel like you don't have the right to feel the way you feel. And I felt that just from the way that the main actor in it, the son,
the point
acted
is,
on
how
his
useful
face.
is that to say to a teenager? How useful
It doesn't work.
No, exactly.
But you could see it all in the actor's face that, you know, that's made me feel like I can't feel the way I feel. And I feel like that is a really big thing, because because everybody I know, if something like that's been said to them, they'll go mental, because it's like, oh, so I'm not allowed to feel like this. I need things dramatic to happen so that I'm allowed to feel the way I feel.
So they go seeking those dramatic things.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that scene, which would usually be seen as just a little bit
detail,
in the film,
incidental,
was really, really important.
Crucial. An anchoring scene. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I really related, interestingly, to the young boys, the main characters' storyline. I mean, I used to be very much into my sport, and then I took an injury when I was in my mid-20s. And I remember, yes, he's got the pressure of his dad. Yes, he's got the really well-presented, I thought, pressure of college. It was almost presented like a cult. I've seen it written that, you know, so the way the coach would be chanting. And so the idea that you can just sort of swim against that current, you know, when he was being told, if you carry on sporting, you're going to have an injury that could wipe you out for good.
Yeah.
For many young boys, that's the end of your life. Relatively speaking, because you're like, that's what defines me. And I thought they did a really good job of showing how it defined him.
Yeah, because he committed his whole life to it.
Yeah, he committed his whole life to it, and how he wanted, and he'd push his body that extra yard. And I was flinching, and I was wincing, and I was just like, oh my God. Because I know that now when I take an injury, I sometimes just want to ignore it, or I'll take paracetamol. So that felt very real, and I understood where the pressure was coming from. Meanwhile, always in the background, you've got his sister, who I thought brilliantly, when you look back at the first half of the film, was very much a ghost in the whole thing.
She really was.
That scene between him and his father, where his father says, you know, you live in this house, and it's essentially, that is such a key scene, because that's the scene where he decides, if ever there was going to be a moment to actually come clean to his father and say, I can't do this, it would have been then, and he can't. It's
it
wiped
sealed
out.
him in.
And in that sense, that the fate of the whole film rests on that.
And I thought that was where this film becomes a really that's where I think this film is a clever film. Okay, structurally and plot-wise, it perhaps goes around the courses a little bit, and it loses its way a little towards the end of the sister's story. But what I liked about it was, I thought this film, and let's think of the title, Waves. It's like life and relationships are like waves that crash in, and then they flow out, and then they crash in. And as waves happen, they slowly erode things, and things change for the good and for the better. And I thought it was a really good film that showed us how the smallest of statements, or the smallest and the most well-meaning of intentions, can transform people's lives. It made me really rethink, of all the films I've seen recently, how just the slightest thing I say to you girls, or any of my girls as children, could take on the most enormous of significance to you, even if it was meant from a kind place or a meaningful place or a supportive place. The stresses that youngsters get aren't just from bad things said, they're also from good things not said clearly, if you know what I mean. And I thought it was really interesting from that perspective. This film has what I can only describe, and this is a spoiler alert right now, this film has a moment in the middle of the film that was truly, truly shocking. And it's an absolute moment of such surprising and extraordinary, violence and drama, that I wasn't actually prepared for it within this film. I knew we were going to get a story of the travails of a family. I knew we were going to get an emotional
there was
story.
no hint of it in the trailer.
No hint of it in the trailer at all. And so what happens is through mitigating circumstances where his girlfriend gets pregnant, she wants to keep the baby, he kind of goes, he doesn't want her to keep the baby. And through a series of unfortunate events, literally, he ends up accidentally killing her.
Yeah.
My God.
And that moment, how did we feel? What did you individually feel? I've never known you cry so much.
Yeah, no, I was properly crying.
I mean...
Because the problem, I tell you why I felt it was so emotional for me, was because basically earlier on in the film, before that happens, they go to an abortion clinic, don't they? And basically they get into a fight in the car, the two of them, because she's saying how she wasn't able to go through with it. And obviously he's a young boy, so he's going to react when he's told that she's pregnant and she can't do it.
Yeah.
She basically calls him, doesn't she? And she's like, she texts him and says that she wants to keep the baby and tells him not to get angry. So he's shocked and he's like, we can't talk about this over text. And she ends up blocking him.
So did you feel she was very much provoking a situation?
Okay, so provoking's not the right word because nobody deserved.
No,
she didn't
of course
deserve
not.
to die. Obviously,
No,
that's
no.
like not even it. She didn't even deserve to get hurt. But she definitely provoked him because you know from the film that he's not a bad person. He's a good person. He's not somebody that would hurt.
No, and he hasn't demonstrated violence towards anyone.
He's never been violent towards her in the past. I feel like she did provoke it by blocking him was where it messed up. She should not have blocked him because I know because I'm in that generation.
I was going to say people of my generation.
That probably doesn't mean anything to you, does it? No,
it's just
so
like
when you block someone, it's basically just for us.
Yeah.
It's like taking the person out of your life completely.
Yeah.
Even if you're seeing them in person, if you've blocked them on social media or blocked them from calling you, that is like they're finished with you.
Yeah.
So that is a big deal for us, and I feel like where she did that is where it sent him. And you know from the scene as well that he didn't mean to do what he did. And basically, she just keeps slapping him around the face repeatedly, and they're in an argument, and he really doesn't mean to, but he punches her around the face.
And because he's a wrestler, his strength is beyond his own.
And he punches her around the face, and then she falls into the ground and hits her head in it. Oh my god, the shock I felt, and I felt as I can't even imagine how scared he must have been when that happened.
Yeah, it did a very good job of putting us, almost parking us behind his eyes.
Yeah,
so that
like,
for me,
it's
when
like
it happened,
done it.
I was like, I'd done it.
Yeah.
Go
And
on.
that shock.
The shock was I was so
you're like,
shocked. I was as shocked as I was by the end of Uncut Gems, and you were in floods of tears. But where were you, Mum?
You were crying.
You were in the loo, weren't you? I'm joking.
She was crying as well.
No, it was tragic, but the film lost me slightly here at this point. He sank too quickly. He sank too quickly from, he's taking very strong painkillers. But then because of an altercation at home, he went from a previously well-behaved, boy, top of the sports club. He didn't just take strong painkillers, he drank, he did everything in the space, which sent him almost temporarily insane. When he arrives at the party, he is completely almost insane. And
well, he was in a reverie though, wasn't he? He was in a sort of...
There's a moment...
He's had it's strong emotions going on, mixed with being really...
But what you felt was what he got... you felt you would have liked more of a build-up to that point.
If they were going to go that way, yes, they had to convince me that that's how it would have gone.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous scene, and maybe this was the filmmaker's way of doing it. I can't remember exactly where this sits, where he was looking at himself in the mirror and he opened his hands. Do you remember that?
Beautiful
moment.
moment.
And he just sat with that for a second,
moment.
and I felt that was saying, I could stop. There's always a moment where, however drunk...
That was a mesmerising moment, actually, when he looked at
I was expecting some swirly stuff.
Yeah, I thought he was going to
say... a moment where you can stop the violence or stop doing what you're doing.
It's a bit like Joaquin Phoenix's moment in the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's his moment of transition. Of what,
and he held that shot, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And then it transpires what transpires. But I slightly sort of veered in that whole business of him sinking and finally attacking his girlfriend and the girlfriend dying. I felt like, and maybe this isn't important at all, we went from a realist tale to a cautionary tale, in the sense that I felt he was throwing everything at us.
Right.
And we had to sort of accept the fact that a previously, very good boy from a good family, from blah,
But
blah,
wasn't
blah.
that simply the story?
But
one could say that.
I mean, that's the story that they're telling. I mean, I know what you're saying.
I disagree with the spiralling out of control too quickly, though, because I understand what you're saying, and usually I would say that there would need to be a longer build up to him spiralling out of control, because he did spiral out of control in like the space of a week.
Well, yeah.
But I think that is realistic. I know people that have...
Oh, right, okay.
I think
transition
totally
quickly.
spiral out of control really, really quickly.
Okay.
But also, he had something dreadful. He knew he
Yeah.
would never...
recover from that again.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could argue that a fatalism had kicked in quite quickly and quite speedily.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, without jumping to the end of the film, because I felt overall the film was about 15 minutes long, now you've said that, Mum, I do wonder whether they could have been more judicious and used that 15 minutes in that moment of getting us to the kind of crux scene.
And taking the last bit
And taking the last bit out,
Yeah,
absolutely. I wonder whether you could have lost... Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But here's an interesting detail, and I'm really fascinated to know whether you noticed this. Did you notice anything different happened to the way it was shot at the point that she was hit?
Yes.
Well
Did
spotted.
Did the frame get
Yeah,
smaller?
and I was thinking now, was this a problem in the projection? Did something happen in the cinema? Because what happened at the very point, go back to it,
Yeah,
at the very point of the cracking sound,
Yeah.
and then it does the first
She
edit,
hits the ground.
she hits the ground, when it
Yes.
cuts up to the next shot, it's gone from
frames-
it's gone from
there.
16 by
I
9
noticed that.
to 4 by
I
3.
thought something had happened, but
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't
Well,
know.
And
I
it was
thought-
grainier.
It was grainier. Now, I went hunting last night like mad because I was thinking, how did I imagine that? Was that real?
Yeah.
And the director did do that, and he worked on that with the cinematographer Drew Daniels. Their idea being that by immediately truncating the shot, they wanted to make it feel infinitely more claustrophobic for him.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
okay.
worked.
That was amazing.
And I thought it was really, goosebumps.
Yeah.
I love it when filmmakers play with that kind of thing, because then what happened in the obverse of that was, as we then moved into the sisters story,
Yeah.
it went back to widescreen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as the panorama of choice started to
How
spread,
clever.
it was almost like the shape of the film
I
you're
noticed
watching
that.
shortened.
I didn't know
Yeah.
if it would have been a mistake or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. Now, I don't think you ever really recovered from his fate, did you?
I didn't. No, because I tell you what made me realise, it's kind of like when you see in the news and everything
Mm.
of these people that have killed somebody or, you know, have done something terrible to somebody else.
Yeah.
And everybody jumps to it and goes, they're evil and they,
Yeah.
like, I hope they go there for life and everything. And I'm not saying that it's the case for everybody. Some people have just done stuff that
Oh,
are
yeah,
evil.
absolutely.
And just because of somebody's past, somebody having a terrible past doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they have the right to do something that terrible. When you've watched the film and you've followed how good a person he really is and how much he really loved her and how he really didn't mean to do what he did, that's why it made it so painful when he was
Yeah,
sentenced
absolutely.
to life.
The statistic is horrifying. I think it's something like 1 in every 10 black men in America ends up incarcerated.
Yeah, no, it's
at some
awful.
point in their life.
It's
That
awful.
statistic is horrifying.
awful.
And
Because I bet if he was white, he wouldn't have gotten
no,
away.
it wouldn't be the same. And in that respect,
That's why
No.
it's so heartbreaking.
yeah.
So the second half of the film then focuses on the sister's story, her love affair with Lucas Hedges.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
What did we think of that?
Because of the first half and the brother having such a
Yeah.
disjointed life, I constantly the whole way through her one felt like something awful was going to happen.
Yes.
So I thought Lucas Hedges was stood up
Yeah.
and didn't actually ask her out, or
I
when
thought
they
he
were
was a stalker or
Yeah, I thought
something.
he was going to suddenly sort of reveal that he
Yeah.
was horrible.
yeah,
Yeah.
or when they were sat at the table
Yeah.
and she brought up the fact that who her brother was, I thought he was going to suddenly turn and say
Yeah,
something
yeah,
horrible
yeah.
about
I did
him.
too.
But he was so lovely.
Yeah.
He was
He
adorable.
played it beautifully.
And she
Yeah.
was adorable.
They both, I thought they were both immaculate in their performances.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think she is an absolutely remarkable young actress.
She is.
I thought that this latter half of the film, the very thing that you say that you felt at all times something awful could happen,
Yeah.
kind of replicated what it's like being a parent. I felt constant anxiety in the
Yeah.
second half of the film.
Yeah, right.
And it was a curious emotion for a film to generate. I've never had that generated because ostensibly it's never delivered on.
No, no.
And yet forever one was feeling,
Yeah.
and so what it served for me was it reminded me of just how fragile
yeah.
every juncture is.
Also,
the
what I
junction
quite
is.
liked as well was with the brothers half
Yeah.
of the film. Obviously, his addiction kind of spiraled out very quickly. You know, he got like the bad end of it. But in her half, she does Xanax, I think,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
X
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like nothing bad.
No, nothing
Yeah.
bad.
I mean,
happens.
I'm not to say
It's
that
the
it should
lottery.
be promoting it.
Yeah,
But, you know,
yeah.
there is a lot of just saying that drugs
Yes.
are bad. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're bad for you, but not everybody has a bad experience.
No,
And
absolutely.
You were sat there thinking like, oh my god, look, one of them going to
Yeah,
die,
yeah,
and
yeah.
something bad's going to happen. But it just shows you how it's not the same for
Well,
everyone.
and also, I think it was going to great lengths to show you that two kids from the same domestic situation can have such different outcomes.
Yeah. I'd say that it tried to do too much. As
Yeah, I think if there's
It did, yeah,
anything
it was
wrong with it, it
too
was
long.
over ambitious.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
over ambitious, and it
overambitious.
did. If I'm being really brutal, it did feel like, not that I mind that, but it did feel so like two different films. There were so many little light and shady moments between her and Lucas Hedges that was so tense. I mean, obviously, I had some. There was one part of the film that I thought they could have done away with, which was Lucas Hedges going to see his absent dad, who's a bit of an arsehole, who's dying of cancer.
Yeah, who's never had any
He's never had any relationship with. But you see, even on that detail, I felt like I had skin in the game because
Yeah.
I don't know who my father is. I've met him twice. I mean, I do
Yeah.
know he is, but I've met him twice. I have no relationship with him, and yet at some point in my life, I'm going to get a phone call saying
Yeah.
he's dead or he's dying.
Yeah.
And it really made me think about, you don't have to have a relationship with someone for them to have a relationship with you. I tell you what I really liked about it, to see a young relationship presented innocently. And that's where I think
Yeah,
it
it was
departed
nice.
from Euphoria totally.
Yeah.
To see him there was a lovemaking scene that was done beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
It was
yeah.
really
And
sweet.
she's the insistent one on him going to see his father.
Absolutely.
And very quickly, but if we go back to the scenes with her brother, she's
Yeah.
sort of, again, got skin in the game in that she
Yeah.
tries to make him all right when he's being sick and
Yes,
whatever. So she goes
yes.
back to that in her mind.
Carer,
and thinks, I
helper,
could have done
rescuer.
more. I could have done more.
How would we sum this up?
I was so excited about this right from when I saw the trailer. It's me. It's what I want.
It's A24.
It's Frank Ocean singing
Frank
in
Ocean.
it, so, However, the trailer is completely different to the film. I mean, the trailer doesn't even, it's just so shocking.
Yeah, it is.
The film, I'm still a bit shocked from it myself. I thought the main boy was incredible. I haven't seen him in anything else.
Kelvin Harrison.
Yeah, he was really good in it. I loved the way it was shot. It was very like Euphoria when it would do the kind of spinning around.
Yeah.
And I liked a lot of time, like they do this thing where they were going in between, I think it was like in between different scenes, or it's like when it went from his story to her story, there was like this rainbow colour.
The rainbow colour, abstraction.
Yeah.
A bit like
Really
Uncut
nice.
Gems. There's a lot of abstraction in film.
Yeah.
And the music was really abstract.
Yeah. Well, I like the way the music would go from thematic, sort of mood music, into tracks, and then come out. It was a real collage.
Yeah, I really loved it. It was a shocking film. Like, you are sat there very...
I've not known you cry as much as I've seen you.
I cried a
I'm
lot
not
in
sort of, I hope you're not
Thanks,
embarrassing
Dan.
you. No, but it was very, I wanted to hug you.
Also, I was on edge, like, the whole time, because even if something bad didn't happen, I felt like something bad was going to happen. I would agree that I thought the film was far too long, but at the same time, it's the same thing with Joker. It was too long, but everything that came after when it should have ended was still really good.
Yeah.
It just could have been either separate films or just kind of lost. As much as I liked it, the sister's story, I felt like I got every emotion in it. I laughed in a few bits. I cried. I was happy in parts as well. It was a brilliant film. Like, it's really stuck with me. I've told all of my friends to go and see it, and it speaks to our generation a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I would give this 95, and the reason it isn't 100 is just solely because of the length.
Kiki adored the film from start to finish, and she gave it an unambiguous 100 out of 100. Just giving you that. She adored it. She's got friends, that's why. Maddie's now legging it. She's legging it. Go for it.
The sister story, surprisingly, sat better with me than the boys' story.
Oh right, that's interesting.
Well, because I did feel it was kaleidoscoped. It was rushed.
Yeah.
somehow, the boy's story.
Yeah.
Which sort of lost me slightly at the end of it.
Right.
At the end of his story.
Yeah.
In their effort to make, sort of almost everything he did, from the tablet taking to the spliff smoking to the drinking to the not being able to wrestle, all in a very, very short time. Each time one of those things happened, I'd turn to Kiki and say, that's the end of his life. That's the end of his life. That's the end of his life. In that sense. And it was so well played. It's beautiful. Let's just say all the positive things. It was beautifully played.
Beautifully shot.
Beautifully shot. I do worry about, as I get older, that I almost can't take the amount of abstraction and the amount of movement of the camera. It makes me feel slightly dizzy. Maybe that it just is an old age thing.
Wow.
I don't want to feel that, but I was aware that something strange happened with the shots, but it's nice to know what that was. But I would give it 80.
80, 8 out of 100. Okay. Yeah. I thought this was a remarkably beautiful film. And I do like films that are imperfect, and it is imperfect. I also like films that can't be pigeonholed, and it's hard to pigeonhole it. I like the fact that people don't quite know what to do with it. That for me is all pluses. It was too long, and I do think it got distracted in certain narrative points and storylines at certain points, which it was probably just didn't need to go there, especially Lucas Hedges' father, perhaps, although I found it compelling and interesting. There were bits they could have trimmed in order to, I think you're probably right, I think they rushed that transitional moment of the boy going sort of down and then sort of killing her. Yeah. I think they could have spent a bit more time there in that zone. But that said, I thought it worked as a beautiful point and counterpoint. The contrast between two childhoods in the same family was emotionally challenging as a parent and quite beautiful, but also anxiety inducing, because you're like, God, however much we try to cradle our kids, we can't cradle them. You can either cradle them too much or not enough. So for a parent, it was massively interesting. The cinematography was absolutely beautiful. Drew Daniels, you need a name check because it was beautifully shot, beautifully conceived. It took us into the heart of things, and I felt like I was a living, breathing. I was in the head of the boy. I was in the head and heart of the girl. I was in Lucas Hedges' head at times, And so to be able to take us as a viewer and park us in that privileged position of a teenager in today's world is quite a special thing. I'm going to go between the two of you. You gave it 80, Maddie gave it 95. I'm going to give it 90 out of 100. And again, principally because I just think it just needed a bit of trimming.
Yeah, okay.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.